Welcome back to the Feel Like Krys podcast, video edition. I'm going to say that for at least the first 10 videos that I do. This is going to be the norm now, but it's so fun. You're our first official guest.
I'm so excited to be here.
I mean, well, my first official guest was probably my dog, but you're my first human guest.
Okay.
Yeah, so welcome.
I'll try to do as well as whichever dog it was.
High standards. Yes. All right. So this morning we kind of decided, I thought about, as I was recording my first few podcasts, I was like, I really don't want to do it by myself, which I actually did already record one by myself. And it was very difficult, as you can imagine, because you're talking to no one. But I was like, I want to have people on. And I was like, oh my God, I've never had FLK instructors on the podcast. So it was a natural fit. But being very transparent, as I was coming up with what I was going to talk about today, I text you and Brittany and I was like, all right, guys, this is what we're talking about. And I just want to, well, we'll start with sort of you just introing yourself. Everybody, this is Sam. Sam's going to tell us a little bit about, I guess, just what you're up to now, because we could go through a lot, but like where you are now, your role, FLK method, and then a little bit about the text you sent me. And then we'll go from there.
Sure. So I'm an instructor of yours for FLK method. It'll be 2 years in April, I think.
Time flies.
I know.
I can't even believe that.
I know. I absolutely adore it. It's one of my favorite parts of my week. I've said this in my classes. I say it to the people around me. My kind of two like side hustles are my passion, whereas my full-time job is just kind of like what I need to survive. So when I get to teach and when I get to do my other hustle, I am just happy and it makes me very happy. So I predominantly teach, I would say, like weightlifting, cardio themed classes with some quick fires in there because my passion in fitness has always been weightlifting. And yeah, that's my FLK.
What's your full-time job?
I am an account director for a staffing company. So I manage the relationship between 3 large portfolios and my company. And I have a staff of 7 under me that I manage on a day-to-day basis.
When did you start like falling in love with fitness? Like when did that begin?
Probably not until I was about 23-ish. I kind of had this mindset where I was always like a very petite person. So I was like, oh, like, I don't need to work out. Like, I'm just like tiny and cute. Like, what do I need to work out for?
You are tiny and cute.
Thank you. But my aunt became a certified personal trainer and started working for a gym back again when I was like in my early 20s. And she wanted support as a new instructor there. So me and my cousin joined and we started going to her classes. And I realized like
Where was that?
It was in Whippany, New Jersey.
Okay.
Yeah, it was called Greg's Fitness. It was a small little studio of like mostly women just working out together. And I loved it. I liked being there. I liked being around other women who were like wanted to do better for their health. And I also liked kind of like competing a little bit. Like I was young and I was fast and I wanted to, it was like a boot camp style gym where you had stations and you'd run around. So I really enjoyed it. And ever since then, even after I moved away from that Morristown area, which is where she's still located now has her own studio, I've just hopped around ever since until I found my home at FLK.
And so a lot of people have made the transition from, working out in person to working out at home. But there was a lot of people that made the transition, but then they transitioned back to working out in person. So for someone who your first, 10 to 15 years in fitness was working out in person, now you're working out just from home. How? For people that struggle with working out from home, like how do you make that transition? Like what do you do to stay motivated? And what's the benefit of it as opposed to that competitive, like in-person feeling? Like how does it compare?
So I think the thing that works for me, to be transparent as an instructor, is that like I'm a little bit lazy sometimes. Like I just want to like wake up, get my workout done and like move on to the big part of my day, which is my 8 hours at my desk. And it was already really hard to have to motivate myself pre FLK to like physically drive to a place where I would find I would miss it more often than not because I had this big 8 hour part of my day like looming in front of me that was already despair. But I always felt so much better when I got to that workout first.
Get out of corporate America while you can.
Yeah. You just get yelled at most of the day. You work your ass off and just get yelled at by your clients. So this transition was actually really easy for me because it allowed me to still like prioritize like getting to sleep in the morning and just having to walk down my stairs and do it and then have this part of my day that still exists. But also like if I missed it, I had the second part of my day too. I didn't have to drive anywhere. I didn't have to go anywhere. And in terms of like why I love it so much, I feel like also like I'm older than I was. I'm 10 years now from being in my early 20s, 11. So I don't have desire to be competitive right now. There's no one for me to compete with except myself. So like working out by myself is not a problem. So
Yeah.
I've found that, and the community is great. So I don't want to compete with anyone in our community.
Yeah, I relate to you in the sense of like lazy, don't want to do it. And it's weird as a fitness instructor saying that. Like people think like, and I'm like, I don't want to be like happy and energetic every day. It's work. Like it's work to do it. But the fact that it's so fun and people are so into it too, it makes it so much better. It still is a workout. It's still something that like you have to get done.
Yeah.
But there's an element of looking forward to it, which I didn't have for most of my workout world. And then what's your other passion, your other side hustle?
So I have a small cat rescue out of my home, Sam Saves Cats. And I really got into it in the pandemic. There are cats around my house that I knew needed help. So I started feeding them. And then I realized that feeding them wasn't enough because there would be more and more kittens every year. So I learned about how to properly get them vetted, fixed, so they could live outside and not reproduce. So that's grown over the last like 2 to 3 years, where now I have a small rescue that I run out of my home and a social media following. And I'm really passionate about just like reducing the suffering of outside animals.
When did that start and why?
Pandemic, when I moved in with my now fiance, Brandon, he had a cat that was coming to his house. And I was like, why is that cat outside? He's like, I don't know. It's just there. I'm like, what do you mean it's just there? It should be inside. He's like, well, you already brought 3 cats when you moved in. You can't have another one. So I started with this cat. I figured out where I could get it fixed for not a lot of money. And ever since then, I just was like, oh, this isn't that hard. And now that I started like raising money, that people that are passionate about it too, that want to help me, it helps with the financial burden. And eventually I hope to open up a nonprofit and do it as like transitioning out of my corporate life someday.
Yeah. And you sort of the ideal dream is to combine fitness and cats.
That would be amazing if I could have a physical place where I had cats that were rescued. I think that animals are really therapeutic, as is fitness. And like, I've always loved when I could go to like a cat yoga studio or like anything.
Are those things? That's a thing?
Yeah. They'll do it at this place in Montclair. It has it from time to time.
Cat yoga.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess that's more reasonable than goat yoga. Goat yoga is
Yeah, you get stomped by a goat. The cat's just going to fall asleep next to you. Yeah.
All right. And then you mentioned 2 side hustle passions, but there's a third.
Christmas?
There you go. I'm like, does she know? Because I know.
Yeah.
And I love that. It's the FLK green, but it's also very festive.
Yes.
And we have the cup and we have everything going.
Yes, we have the sports bra.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about that, because I really want people listening to this to get to know you.
Sure.
And then also we're going to make sure they learn from you too. But that also I feel like is a big part of who you are.
Yeah.
Christmas Sam. So tell us a little bit about her.
Sure. So I, as kids, we all loved Christmas, right? But I don't know why once I got into my own place, I guess that's actually why I got into my own place, and it was finally like mine to do as an adult, like whatever I wanted to do with Christmas. I didn't have to beg my mom to decorate early. I didn't have to like organize everybody else's lists and what we were doing and where we were going. It was just mine. And I think I moved into my apartment, I think like out of where I was in 2015. And I got to do it all on my own. And I realized like, I'm going to decorate on November 1st. I'm not taking my tree down until the middle of January. I'm going to start listening to Christmas music. And it just brought me so much happiness. And it's such a short time of the year. December already is, that
flies by.
Flies by. So I was like, Mine is November through January, and that's what it is. And I was really lucky that when I met Brandon, he was like, listen, you're passionate about this. Like, let's do it. And it's just something that we count down towards every year. We both take PTO off the first day of November to decorate together. We've created traditions for our family that we now do as a group. And we have 2 traditions every year that we do as a family that is like outside of your like Christmas Day and Christmas Eve. And it's just, I don't think you have to limit the joy of the season to just 25 days. And I kind of make it part of my personality for this whole year. And I think that even if you don't celebrate Christmas or you're not religious, I'm not really religious, but like, it's just about like the happiness that I feel this time of year. And it makes me happy to share it with other people. So I'm sure if you take our classes, you saw my decorations have been up and they'll be up through like mid-January, and it makes me happy.
Oh my God. I love that. $30 to change your life. It does not sound real, but I assure you it is. And it all starts with joining FLK Method for $30 as a new client. Head to Google. You don't have to take my word for it. Head to Google FLK Method and just read all of the reviews talking about how something so simple has changed women's lives all over the world. And it's $30. And after the first month, you can cancel it. And that's not a great decision, but it's your decision. All right. I just want you to not take my word for it, but to take the first step into changing your routine, finding what works for you, and finally feeling, looking, and living a fit and healthy lifestyle. You can either email me at fitlikekris@gmail.com or head to my website, fitlikekris.com. So as a fitness instructor now, and always sort of for the past however many years having your health as a priority, this is a time of year that so many people struggle. And I think that steals the joy from a lot of people that I guess that I coach, because I'm talking to more women that are trying to like get into a routine and get on track and find balance. And when you're doing it this time of year, it's really hard. So what are like a couple things you can share with people for someone who's so invested and you embrace it and you don't miss it? What are things that you don't do, to have like, to feel good in your body?
Sure.
And in your mind.
Yeah. So every day of December is not a Christmas party. So I don't have to treat it like that from like an eating and drinking perspective. Because it's not realistic. I wouldn't survive the holiday season. No one would if we treated it all like a party every day. But I don't limit myself when the opportunity does come up. I love baking with my family at Christmas. We have a whole day where we bake hundreds and hundreds of cookies, and I do not limit myself that day at all, because that's the day to make the cookies and to make the memories and to enjoy them. But then what I do after is I share them with the people around me. I don't keep hundreds and hundreds of cookies. It's something, again, that I get to share with other people. And in terms of movement, like I love the opportunity to incorporate the season into my classes, which you allow me to do, and the challenge allows me to do as well, the 12 days of Christmas. So that makes it fun for me. And I think that because you have those challenges every month, you always have the opportunity to bring fun into it. FLK is fun as it is. But I would say that at least during this season gives it the little extra for me and helps me get through it. Not get through it, but helps me get through the parts that aren't the parties.
Right. Yeah. Like it doesn't bleed over into like the Christmas party doesn't last the whole week.
No, it's a day, and I enjoy the day, and I then share that day with other people by like whatever those spoils were. Like did people come to my house and bring 10 bottles of champagne? I don't need 10 bottles of champagne.
Right.
Then I'm going around the next day to my neighbors and I'm giving that box of cookies and a bottle of champagne. Like it's something that I get to share, and I'm not going to drink 10 bottles of champagne the next 10 days.
Did you struggle with it at one time and now you feel like you've got a better hold of it?
When I was younger, for sure. Yeah. Like when my friends and when I was single and we'd be going out and there were Christmas bar themes all the time. And we were out in Morristown Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Like absolutely. I didn't turn it off. And I, struggled because you don't feel good after a day of just indulging all day, especially if you're not moving the next day. And at that point, I was still physically having to drive to a fitness location, and I wasn't doing it because I didn't want to, because I was either hungover or tired or had too much sugar the day before. So this really has blended itself in a great way, the fitness from home, and then also just kind of growing up a little and realizing that like you don't have to drink and eat all day to enjoy the the time of year.
Yeah, groundbreaking.
Yeah, I know, right?
Groundbreaking information.
Yeah.
And speaking of groundbreaking, I want to go back to the text that you
Yeah.
sent me. So being a guest on a podcast, is this the first podcast you've been on? Like
It is.
Okay. You're doing great.
Thanks. I listen to about 10 podcasts a day. So
Okay, good. You've got it. You've practiced.
Yeah.
In your head, you've practiced. So I just want you to share a little bit about that because it was like an insecurity, right? Like you were just like, So I just want you to share that.
Sure. So I lost my sister back in 2021, and she's my younger sister. She was a teenager, and it has been incredibly hard ever since. It's not something that you ever fathom will happen to you. It happened right before like I started celebrating the Christmas season back in 2021. And there was a really big part of me that was like, well, this is just kind of over now. It's not fair for me to celebrate this thing anymore because somebody that was so entwined in it with me is not here to celebrate it with me. And that made it worse, right? Like grieving is terrible, like all by itself. So I almost dove into that first Christmas season 10 times harder than I ever did before to distract myself from the sadness that I was feeling. And did I keep all my healthy habits that I normally do? No, that first 6 months was really hard. And I wasn't an instructor yet. So I didn't have a consistent, like, not reason to work out, but like if I didn't want to,
Obligation,
I wasn't hurting the crew by not showing up. I was just not showing up for myself. So coming out of that, like I felt worse and was like, all right, next season, I'm going to do it differently. Next Christmas season, I'm going to get through it differently. And I don't think that I did. I think that grieving during the holidays is really hard. Grieving in general is really hard. But what I did was try to find ways to incorporate my sister that were not sad. So in our house now we have 7 Christmas trees. And one of those trees we decided to dedicate to Brooke. So it has only her favorite color ornaments on it. It has things that are meaningful to our relationship. And when I decorate that tree every year and when friends and family give me ornaments for that tree, it makes me feel closer to her.
Aww.
But there's no answer to going through hardship during the holidays. I feel like for me, diving into it is almost a distraction because unfortunately, although it's very cliche, like the only way to get through grief is time, and it becomes less and less painful every year. That doesn't mean you don't have those moments where it overtakes you, but you just kind of have to fake it until you make it and then find ways to like bring that happiness out with that person involved.
And I kind of gave you a heads up that I wanted to touch on this a little bit, kind of lost through the holidays as we're in the holiday season. And your response was that, I really don't have anything groundbreaking to say. It's just kind of, and I was going to respond, but I thought I would respond, on the podcast, is that there's so many times where I'll be about to say something in a class or a coaching session, like, in a class, like deepen your breath or like, put one foot in front of the other, which was just, on one of my podcasts, or, drink X amount of water. And none of it is groundbreaking, but just saying it and just sharing your experience is what people need to hear.
Yeah.
Because it's coming from you. It's coming from something that's really happened to you. And I think what it does over and over again, and what I hope to do over and over again, is to highlight that we're not alone, that you've gone through this and so many other people are going through this and they're like, no one would ever guess that about you and the Christmas season. Like they would never know.
Right.
And I think, beyond that, beyond just being an inspiration of being able to push forward and being a role model, like if you can do it, someone else can do it. There's a really good lesson there, which is diving into something, going harder, not going less, right? Like, exemplifying, is that a word? Exemplify.
Yeah,
I think it's okay. Exemplifying, like just really getting into it as opposed to
sinking.
Yeah.
No, it is. And obviously that you don't just grieve during the Christmas season, right? You grieve all the time and you find different ways to distract yourself while not forgetting that person. It's going to be different every time of year. But to your point, like whenever someone does find out that I had this loss that's in the crew, like so many times someone will be like, oh my gosh, like I lost my mom and I struggle with this during the holidays, or I lost my brother to a similar situation and I really struggle with this. So I didn't know, and thank you for sharing. So everybody is going through it in some way and everybody will go through it in
Yeah.
some way. So it's figuring out how to balance that grief with like not letting go of like everything around you.
Yeah. And one of the ways that anybody can get through something a little easier is by talking about it and by sharing it,
Yeah.
because then again, you realize other people are going through it. You also said something about being an instructor. You only had to show up for yourself, now being an instructor. And I just want to tell everybody listening, you don't have to be an instructor to show up for other people. If you are dealing with something really hard in the holidays, kind of shine a light on that and make it even a little bit harder. Um, find people that you can either do something for, like doing something for people is one of the best ways to get out of your own stuff. And then showing up for in the FLK world, if you're a member, or even if you're not, if you have a community of fitness, wellness, if there's even at work, like getting an accountability buddy. Accountability is like the magic, it's like the missing link in so many things. And because we all want to do things or think we need to do things on our own, but we don't. And with someone else, it makes it so much better. It's like
Yeah.
it's so much better to do something with someone than by yourself. Most things.
Yeah.
Some things are fun by yourself.
Sure.
But most things, especially grief or loss, the more you keep it to yourself, the harder it is, right? Would you say that's true?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I remember my first workout pulse in person that I did after Brooke passed. And it was
I remember that.
so incredible to be back in a space with the people that I care about and that I work out with. And at the end of it, we had, I think it was like 5 minutes of Shavasana. And I had those 5 minutes back to myself again, where I was kind of separated from the people in the room because I had like closed my eyes and I was breathing and focusing on like my own breaths. And I like broke down for those whole 5 minutes and tried to not let anyone hear me sobbing because I felt like very alone again, even though I was in a room full of people. And the minute that we broke Shavasana and we're back together, I like pulled myself back together and felt that like happiness again. But
Yeah.
even in that moment, like it's hard doing it by yourself. It's hard doing it by yourself in a room full of people too, though. So
Yeah.
yeah.
You can feel the message there is you can feel very alone in a room full of people if you don't open up and if you're not open, right? Like I mean, for so long in my life, I was definitely this kind of person. Unless someone pried it open, it was just very like this. And I mean, I worked in the nightclub industry. I was surrounded by hundreds of people,
Yeah.
on any given day. And I felt so alone. And it was just because I wasn't opening up. So I think my favorite thing about your experience is that, I mean, there are a lot of things, but is that your ability to not only just get through it, but make it better, but like make it even more, like celebrate it more.
Yeah.
And of course, I don't know how often you share that story with people, but sharing it on here is a first start. And maybe there's some sort of tradition we can make at FLK. That would be really cool.
Yeah,
to share it, because again, I know a lot of people and members specifically who also have lost people, and loss is not just, the devastating loss. There's also the loss of, just people in your life.
Yeah.
Right. Which is also really hard. So,
Yeah.
Let's end with something cheery. Let's end with a distraction. For the holidays, you said that you had two other little traditions or days or whatever. Share something with us maybe that you either look forward to or something that anybody can do to like cheerify their home or their life. Like, give us some holiday tips.
Absolutely. So one, I really encourage baking with people that you love. I think that there is something so wholesome about making something from scratch and doing it together and doing it with like whatever music you like, but specifically for me, holiday music, blasting, passing each other like champagne, and just really just seeing what you created from like literally a bowl of dust into like these beautiful things that people enjoy, and they taste good, right? So there's that. And the second, so that's my cookie baking.
Do you
day.
have a name for that day?
That's just cookie day.
Cookie day.
Yes.
Okay.
I have a name for the second day.
Okay.
So the second day is called Jolly Tales, and we do it every year.
It already. I'm in.
So where
is it?
Where it came from is my boyfriend and really loves my fiance really loves Halloween, scary movies, gory, and it's not my thing, clearly. So every year, the weekend of Halloween, him and his family would get together. They each pick one scary movie, and the whole day,
disgusted.
The whole day I would have to sit through like 12 hours of like gore and blood and like terror, and this was me the whole day, like the whole day.
Oh my God.
Where I finally, after like year 2, I was like, I need a counter to this day. So you guys have spooky tales. I want jolly tales. So it's the same concept where it's just the people that we can in our family and friends come over for that day. They come over at 11. The house is completely decked out in bows and trees and holiday music. Everybody comes with one movie that they really want to watch that day. And we sit in the living room all together with the lights dimmed, and we start at like by 11:30 until midnight when people are starting to leave, and we just watch Christmas movies together, and we drink champagne, and we order yummy food, and we make hot cocoa bars, and
I love it.
It's so easy. Just have people over.
So easy. Cookie day, Jolly Tales, merry marathon. I mean, we're going to do it all.
And I usually kick off Jolly Tales by teaching in the morning. At least the last 2 years I've had my class.
I can't deal with Jolly Tales at the day. Like, I'm dead.
I know. Well, I had to be close to Spooky Tales, the Y. So I teach. I taught last Jolly Tales in the morning. I teach this next weekend, next Saturday. I teach in the morning. So I get my fitness in the day. I get my movement in to then just rot on the couch all day and watch Christmas movies.
Something I shared that I really loved that someone, and I reposted it for my last one of my podcasts, was a calendar that on every day there was like a holiday movie for people to do. And I just think there's so many ways to go about it. I love that you have like the November 1st to the middle of January. You put your like kind of having like not goal setting, but like little markers to look forward to, because looking forward to stuff is like one of the best parts of life.
Yeah.
It's like the actual thing is cool, but like looking forward to something brings out like that hope and that magic and that, I don't know, let's just embrace it all. If you're a Scrooge, I think our other instructor is a Scrooge, but we're bringing her out a little bit.
Yes, I've offered to buy her a Christmas tree every year that I've known her. I think she finally broke down and bought one last year, a small one.
Yeah.
And she has it in her classes. So yes.
Yeah, she has a tiny one.
Yeah.
So there's hope.
There is hope.
There's hope.
Yeah.
Hope for the holidays, merry marathon, embracing Jolly Tales, embracing, instead of sinking down, showing up when you're going through loss and knowing that you are never alone. Sam, thank you so much
for
joining
us.
I love you so much. Give me a hug. All right, guys, we will see you in class. Happy holidays.
Bye.